Hi everyone, welcome to the Boom Interviews. Today we are joined by the lovely Mama Goat here, and we are going to talk to her about mental health, social media, about the profession, about the study of psychology, etc., etc., etc. So, to give a brief about what we will be delving into our conversation, India is home to a population of over a billion people. And as per a 2015 study by the World Health Organization, one in every five Indians may suffer from depression in their lifetime, a number equivalent to 200 million people. The latest government statistics on mental health that are available to us are from India's National Mental Health Survey of 2015 and 16, which shows that 10.6% of India's 1.3 billion population suffers from mental health disorders. The report notes that 80% of such patients are not under medical treatment. These statistics that I just mentioned might not be the accurate reflection of actual number of people suffering from mental health issues, and the reason being absolute lack of awareness about mental health and the very strong stigma attached to it.
A foundation called the Live, Love, Love, founded by Deepika Padukone in 2018, conducted a study exploring perceptions around mental health and mental illnesses in India. They showed that while 87% of the respondents showed some awareness of mental health, 71% also used terms associated with stigma. A majority of respondents appreciated the importance of social support for people with mental illnesses, but while 68% agree that we have a responsibility to provide the best possible care for sufferers, the number of people who believe that no one has the right to exclude people with mental illnesses from their neighborhoods is comparatively lower, at a mere 57%.
The Government of India replaced the 1987 Mental Health Act with the 2017 one, revising several aspects of mental health that were lacking in the previous legislation and making it more inclusive with the current healthcare system. But sadly, the efforts towards raising awareness on mental health and making the practitioners more accessible to general population remain disappointing.
But with social media taking over the world, we have an influx of content creators using their platform to raise awareness on various issues, including mental health. While there is an influx of unqualified personnel, there are a few legitimate psychologists using social media to educate, to bust myths about psychology, normalize the conversation around mental health, and also raise their voice against ill practices within the industry.
One of the most popular such pages in India is Awkward Goat Tree on Instagram, which is run by Divija Bhasin. Describing herself as your friendly neighborhood therapist, Divija is a psychologist with an MSc in clinical psychology from the University of Bath. She creates fun, light, and relatable content on mental health, focusing on overall well-being of people. She also actively speaks about unqualified misinformation pages masquerading as psychological facts, which are absolutely false, misleading, and do more harm to the already misunderstood science. The Womb today in conversation with Divija will talk to her about her social media journey as a mental health practitioner, changing perception of people about mental health, and the much needed changes in the study of psychology in India. So we welcome Divija, and Pragya may start by asking her the question she is dying to ask you
Yeah, I've
from a
been
long
really trying to
time.
ask this question for a long time. So I really have to ask, awkward goat three, what is it? Like, how did it come about? Did you meet three awkward goats? I was so intrigued and like curious the first time I saw your handle. How does it work?
I started on TikTok, and I've always been really awkward as a person. Like you'll notice that I'm awkward in the interview also. So I wrote awkward like that, and my dog looks like a goat, and I've always been kind of obsessed with goats because my dog looks like one. So I just randomly put it, and then like one and two were not available, so I wrote three. I didn't know that I would, gain so many followers. It was just a random thing at that moment, and now I kind of regret it because this is such a weird username, and I can't even change it now. So I'm stuck with it forever.
I think also the concerning part is there's two other people out there with awkward goat one and awkward two. Did you ever look them up? Like just out of curiosity, what do these people do?
There's American people. I think even on Twitter, there's people like awkward vote one and two. It's very strange.
So we've seen that your social media following is increasing day by day. You started with TikTok, like you said, and now your main platform is Instagram. And you recently got verified also. Congratulations for that. And your content is very relevant, very relatable to the most text, even the tech-heavy generation. You have videos on mental health, social issues, easy recipes, of course, the mug cake and the Oreo cake, and goat. Definitely goats. I mean, I think on my own part, I do remember sending you some memes on goat as and when I'm passing. But yeah, so why did you decide to join these particular platforms? How did your social media journey begin, and where do you see it taking you?
So I only started making TikToks in the lockdown just for fun, and like I was studying psychology and I've been really passionate about it. So I would link trends to that in my mind, and then I started making them just for fun, and then people started appreciating it. So I was like, I could keep doing this because I got that kind of validation that I needed from random strangers on the internet that I'm doing well. And then I started realizing that I can actually spread proper awareness using social media because like I've always wanted to contribute to this field, and I didn't really know what else I could do apart from giving sessions like a psychologist, because what else can an individual do, right? But then I realized that I could just start making videos and it would reach way more people than just my clients. So yeah.
That sounds amazing, actually. Shivangi, do you want to take over?
Yeah. So you quite often use your platform to debunk false psychological facts people like to throw around. And I think you'll agree with me when I say that taboos breed misinformation. So in a world where seeking help for mental health carries the big red scarlet letter, it is the misinformation that becomes the norm. So how do you mental health professionals deal with this silently brewing pandemic of misinformation and the myth about mental health? Or in your own words, as you say, what does psychologically definitely not say?
So I have noticed a lot of psychologists actually speaking up against these people, especially on Twitter and LinkedIn. So I'm really happy about
Yeah,
that. Like people are actually speaking up now. Most of these psychology facts are just random things which are sexist and classist. Like they just say anything and they call it psychology. So that's wrong because it creates a stigma, right? People start thinking that this is psychology. And in fact, I've had clients come and tell me, like, is this true? I read it. So, you can see it's actually creating a wrong impact on people on that level. So, it's really important to call it out and make sure that people know that that's not psychology.
right. And as you mentioned, the study of psychology, like the education and the discipline, is very limited in India. And you have made a video about it also. First off, there's very little awareness about mental health first, and career in psychology can only be pursued by way of proper professional education, which people often, do not know about. Like, you have to do a proper course to study psychology and throw around these psychological facts. So then there are very few colleges that offer the course of psychology in India. So what problems and hurdles do you see for people who want to pursue this profession?
So there's quite a few problems. Like, first of all, like it's not available for guys. So there's very few
Mm.
colleges, like one or two in Delhi itself, that boys can actually go to, and most of them are in private universities. So people who can't afford that can't take psychology, like especially guys, since that's the
Yeah.
only option they have. And other than that, like if we have to do internships, we have to pay for the internship instead of them paying us or it being free. So that again is like only something that people with money can afford, right? Because how else are you supposed to learn? And then there's also this thing that if you don't go for internships, then how will you get practical experience? So then you're stuck in that place. And also, if you want to get employed after your master's, you won't really get a very good salary, like as much as someone else of your age might be earning. Like it is possible, of course, it's not impossible, but average salary is not that much. So you really have to make your own practice, like private practice. And again, that is not something everyone can do because not everyone has contacts and things like that. So in that sense, there's quite a few hurdles. And one more thing is that if you want to become a clinical psychologist and get a license, there's very few colleges and it's very difficult to get in. So again, it's like the system is not encouraging people to get a license. So yeah.
Right. You have also spoken about the lack of regulations and legislative support in the field of psychology, like the mental health sector severely lacks proper administrative regulation. So, what do you think is the solution to rectify these hurdles?
So there is this body called Rehabilitation Council of India, and they regulate clinical psychologists. So clinical psychologists can help you with disorders, but there's way more types of psychologists other than those people. So there's also counseling psychologists like me, and we don't have anybody. Like no one gives us a license. We just automatically become a counseling psychologist after doing masters, which is not right because we don't like everyone should get practice before they actually start working, and clinical psychologists
Right.
get it through that license, but we don't. So we don't know what kind of psychologists are out there, right? Like what if they didn't get any practice and just started taking clients? So I would really suggest that there would be an actual body like that for counseling psychologists and different types of psychologists. There is something coming up now, but I don't know how much time that will take and how good it will be, because currently the RCI doesn't really care if there's people practicing without a license. Like they've said that they shouldn't, but they don't really, we can't report them anywhere if they're practicing without the license. So they need to get more strict.
Right. So, do you see, like, I've seen you posting about how to pursue a career in psychology. Do you see, like, people being more, like, especially kids in their schools, being more interested in being psychologists after you came on social media and after you started interacting with people? I think there's a connectivity issue with the. Oh, yeah, she's back.
Yeah. Is it my internet?
Uh,
I think it's
I
still
guess,
bad, but it's all right now.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just asking you about, have you like seen people being interested in pursuing psychology as a career, and like do you see any changes since you were a student, like you have recently become a
Yeah.
professional, but you also interact with a lot of younger people, like people in their school who are still trying to figure out what they want to do. So like, do you see people like
Um,
genuinely being interested in the
hmm.
discipline?
So there's a lot of people now who are pursuing psychology or are interested. Like if we talk about my school time, which was quite a while ago, at that time people didn't even have psychology at school level. In fact, my batch was the first one to get psychology in class 11 and 12. So in that sense, it's changed a lot because now I see like every second person I talk to wants to become a psychologist now. So that's really great. But the thing is, there's not that much opportunity to get employed and earn well. So I don't know if they'll actually end up taking it like becoming a practitioner or going into some other field.
Right. Also, like almost all professional sectors, do you see exclusive gendered clubs in your profession? Like, do you see any kind of different treatment or exclusion arising out of you belonging to a particular identity?
So, like I mentioned, like guys can't really become psychologists. Like it's very difficult for them to. Also, even when it comes to seeking help, because there aren't many male practitioners, maybe men would be hesitant in seeking help because maybe they'll feel more comfortable, but they won't have a choice then. And so,
Right.
when it comes to that, and then there's also this thing about access. Like not everyone can afford therapy. It is expensive, and even in the hospital, it is expensive even though it might be cheaper than private psychologists. Also, like then the psychologists also don't get paid that well, so they won't provide good therapy. Like they might not be as passionate about it if they're not earning well enough. So
Right.
it's access is a huge problem in our field.
Yeah, in fact, I was just coming to that, therapy and psychology are seen as very elite concepts. And when one looks at these expenses involved in pursuing a career here and seeking these services, we realize how inaccessible it is to most people. And do you think uh, after this age of information, where more people are coming to know about it, more authorities are probably starting to get conscious about that there is a whole field of psychology that needs to be regulated and made accessible to people. Do you think it still holds true that there is significant that this problem of access could be solved by information about the field, or what on ground practices do you suggest that can bring actual change towards the attitude uh, around mental health and its practice?
So, like when it comes to companies or brands and organizations, they are getting way more aware, but I also feel like they're using it to get popular. Like if they talk about it because this is trending, that's fine. That's not a problem. It's good because then more people will talk about it. But the only problem is when they actually do talk about it and they hire professionals. First of all, they don't always hire professionals. They'll just take up anyone and they'll make them talk about mental health, which is wrong because not everyone knows about it. And secondly, if they do take up professionals, they don't want to pay us. So like they're not really supporting the mental health movement. They're just doing it for the name of it. So
For the clout.
yeah, like if they have the money to pay actors and actresses, things like that, and influencers, why not pay the professionals as well? It's not fair.
Right.
And why would
Right.
they want to, like, why would we want to do all this work for free? So in that sense, they're not really supporting us, but at the same time, there is growing awareness. So maybe slowly, when they understand, they have to support us, and that's how they will actually make people aware. Maybe then it will work.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, really, even if they do it for the cloud, it's really important to, pay somebody for their services. You can't just expect free service. And I understand how frustrating that would be. It's really, yeah.
Yeah.
So recently, I was talking to a friend, and she came up to me. She was really concerned about the idea of actually starting therapy, and she asked me like what does a first session look like, Pragya? And I could only lay down my experience with it, but the question really did stay with me, like what, from the perspective of a professional, could you suggest some uh, questions or any other suggestions that can be there, so that a person who's to get somebody comfortable with the concept of therapy, any perhaps any red flags we should look out for while finding a professional to help us.
So I was actually planning to make a video on this, like how to choose a therapist. So there's a few questions that you can keep in mind, like what do you want to go for, a male or female therapist, and like you can find a male one. I'm sure they exist in this country. And like what is your budget? So that is really important, right? Because like the range is quite a lot, and some therapists do offer a sliding scale, which means that they offer it for less for people who can't access it. So this is also another question to keep in mind. And a red flag would be maybe like if they forcefully ask you questions that you don't want to answer, and they don't make you feel comfortable, like you feel like you're stuck, or if you feel judged, like if you tell them something private and they go and tell someone else that there's a lot of people who go to therapists who their family knows, and sometimes the therapist will come, like a bad therapist will come and tell the parents, and that's wrong. So things like that are important
Right.
to watch out for.
Right, that's actually, I mean, that's breaching the patient and the doctor confidentiality
Yeah.
also. You really can't, shouldn't do that. It's very unethical. I understand that. And, many times the kind of, also one thing I've noticed, and I have a lot of friends that we talk about this stuff, that how are your experiences, and, what do you, like if you're facing this, what have you been suggested? How do you think you can like work it out in your actual life? So the question that I got was that many times, I mean, the conclusion that I had was that many times the kind of suggestions that professionals are the suggestions the professionals offer, they're very divorced from the Indian reality. For example, moving out of the family house is often suggested as a solution for people dealing with toxic parents, which is not a viable option for most people in India. Do you feel that the lack of educational opportunities related to psychology and associate disciplines in India specifically has led to like a cultural disconnect like this?
Yeah, because when we learn, we only learn about like American or British kind of psychologists because they've done research there. But in India, like research is very little when it comes to psychology. So that is one problem. And like theories or books written by proper psychologists, there aren't that many. And even if they are, they're not really popular. So like psychologists don't really get to learn much about the Indian perspective. In fact, we had a subject called Indian psychology in our undergrad. So why is that only one subject in our undergrad? That doesn't make sense because we're in India. So I think we really need to start doing research and write books and like think about our culture as well, because even when it comes to things like getting married, that is, it's not an option to just tell your client that you should get divorced often they can't get divorced. So, but like the outside India, people would suggest like make boundaries, but that's not really that possible in most families here.
Yeah, when like the family unit is so entrenched in our societal fabric, you really can't, like, you have to find a workaround. You can't really
Yeah, I
just
can't like
put it
directly
aside.
make
Yeah,
boundaries. It's not
yeah,
possible.
exactly.
Yeah, this reminds me of a Tina Fey joke. So she in this show, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, she's playing a psychologist, and then Kimmy, the client, she has a breakthrough, and she's like, "Oh, you just had a breakthrough. It's your parents." And trust me, it's always the parents, which made me laugh so bad. Like, wow, is this universal? All
It
of
is
us.
always the parents. That is universal.
Wow, lovely. So, you belong to the younger generation of mental health professionals. So, I have to ask this: like, what is an industry practice that you dislike and would not want to continue?
So I don't really like the fact that a lot of older psychologists kind of want to make really intense boundaries with their clients. Like I make content on Instagram, and maybe older therapists would definitely judge me and be like, "Why is she putting her life out there?" But I feel like that needs to be done. We don't have to be seen as cold professionals who are just there to help you and just go away. Like we can be seen as normal people who are relatable as well. Like in fact, I think that's good for the client because they'll feel more comfortable, and I think that is something we need to stop doing, like not uh, to like be more friendly basically with our clients rather than being all cold and too professional. Of course boundaries are important. I'm not going to talk about
Right.
everything, and I'm not going to talk about my clients on social media, but at the same time I should be seen as a human being apart from my therapy, right? Like for example, I'm only a therapist in therapy, I'm not a therapist in my real life. So that is one thing I think we need
Right.
to normalize.
Yeah, I
Right.
think it really does make like mental health professionals more approachable. In fact, before this whole wave of content creators came to Instagram or started becoming mainstream, I really do feel the whole psychiatrists, psychologists,
Yeah,
they seem very inapproachable
intimidating.
even as a concept to me. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I completely lost track of the question.
Question number 11.
It's question number 11. Damn.
Yes.
Okay. So, how you mentioned that you're a human outside. I mean, you don't exist as a therapist in your real life. Also,
Yeah.
that's just a facet of you. That's not the entirety of you. So, I wanted to know, how do mental health professionals take care of their own mental health, and how important is drawing professional and ethical boundaries when you are in the industry, like you were just talking about.
So it's really important to do like two things. One is to make sure you don't take too many clients. I have learned this from my personal experience. If you take on too many clients, you don't get time to do anything else, and you're not really taking care of your own mental health. So even if it's less compared to other therapists, like everyone has their threshold. So don't judge yourself for taking on less clients. You need to be okay to make someone else okay, right? And also like make sure that you tell your clients that they can't really talk to you or communicate outside of therapy. Like if they keep messaging you other than like emergencies, it's not right, because then you're just constantly helping them out even outside therapy. Of course you shouldn't ignore them, but you need to make these boundaries clear, otherwise you're working 24/7 and you turn into like a helpline rather than a therapist, and they also get dependent
Right.
on you. So that is also another really important boundary.
Yeah. Also, being a social media content creator, has it impacted your career as a psychological counselor in any way?
Yeah, I think I got a lot of clients because of my page. In fact, people started knowing me, so it hasn't really impacted it in a negative way. As my people might assume that I will get clients just because they want to talk to me or something, but that's never happened. I get actual genuine clients, and
Right.
and they all also respect my boundaries. They don't message me outside of sessions, and they don't try to talk to me or anything. So till now, it's been quite smooth. In fact, it's been really surprisingly smooth. I would expect something bad to happen, right? Because I'm like people can approach me anytime, but that doesn't happen. People
Yeah.
understand boundaries.
Yeah. So, what kind of changes do you see in people after there is social media awareness on mental health? Like, do you see more acceptability in people about going for therapy and mental health in general?
Yeah, but only in a very small section of the society, like because English speaking people who can access Instagram and understand all of these things, only those people, and even in that section, not everyone. So it is of course getting better, but it's only to a certain number of people for now.
Right. And the study that Pragya mentioned in the introduction, done by Live Love Laugh Foundation, Divija Bhasin's organization, they also mentioned in that study that they have only interviewed people in five major metro cities. So even that number that we see, and that 57% people think that people should go for therapy and everyone should have access to mental health care professionals. This is a very urban like thinking as of now, at least. Like it hasn't penetrated to rural areas or backward areas. That mental
Selectively
health is
urban, in
important.
fact. I think I would, interrupt you there. Just it's so very selectively urban because I am from a tier two city and I see people around me, and it's not the acceptability is really not there. So if you conduct a study in certain metropolitan areas, of course there's going to be more awareness. Of course, they're going to be slightly more open to the idea of things. But when you come back down to smaller cities, the situation looks very bleak, to be
People
honest.
don't even know, like in the smaller cities, like people barely know in the urban cities. So
Yeah,
I and also like most of the people around the potential clients in the smaller cities would be really against it or wouldn't know anything about it, so then the person would get discouraged, right, even if they had some idea about it.
exactly. It's seen as a
Right.
fast lifestyle problem, and people in all of the tier two cities, they don't really have that fast a lifestyle. So they're just like, that's not an us problem. We
Yeah.
don't have to deal with it, and while silently very obviously suffering from it. So it's really
From
like
a
I
personal
really hope
experience,
things change. Yeah.
yeah. From a personal experience also, like I grew up in a very small town in Madhya Pradesh, and there were like very clear indications of my mental health issues, which like I didn't notice, my family didn't notice. Even when they noticed, they were like, yeah, it must be stress because schools, it must be stress because we are at a stage where we try to get into school, in law school, whatever. And when I got into law school and things got really messed up, and it's like that is when I got a proper diagnosis, and that is true for my best friend also, who also got a diagnosis after she was an adult. A diagnosis we should have gotten in our childhood. So yeah, if like it makes me think if like anybody in the family, or I or my teachers, in fact, in school, they had awareness, we would have gotten this diagnosis earlier, and I think would have been like we could have gotten treatment earlier in our lives rather than in the middle of it.
There's also that problem, like in the smaller cities, if someone is suffering, other people will be like, yeah, we also go through it. But the thing is,
Yeah,
that's not normal.
exactly.
Like it's so normalized. It's like the people with mental illness relate to each other and make it normal, but that's not fine. Like
I have a very funny anecdote on that. In fact, that I will share off camera if you're interested in that.
yeah,
But yeah, I was also just thinking about how there's all this a lot of mental health diagnosis, and also seeing in real life that this could be a problem depends on how inconvenient it is for people around you. So if I have certain problems that I'm suffering from, and they're not, I'm still functioning like a normal adult. I'm doing my things. I'm doing everything that is expected out of me. But then I drop certain balls, and that's when it starts getting complicated for other people, and that may be like the starting point of when people start to realize, or when I start to realize that I have a problem. And I think it's really concerning how like I can only get a diagnosis, or I can only realize that about myself or other people around me when it starts becoming an inconvenience and not as a matter of fact. So yeah,
yeah.
pretty. But this was a great session. I got to learn a lot, and it was really fun meeting you, Divija. And good to meet you.
Yeah, we have been planning this meeting for a long, long time. I'm
Quite a
just so
while.
glad it finally happened.
Yeah.
And I like there is a level of comfort amongst the three of us because
Yeah.
we have known each other for a while now. In fact, like I have known Divija because one of my closest friends is Divija's best friend. And so I have known about Divija's existence for a while. But my first conversation with her was when I had hit rock bottom in lockdown. And my friend, she was like, "You have to talk to Divija." I was like, "Okay, I'm talking to Divija." And then I spoke to Divija. Things got better. Now everyone who comes to me who are like not feeling well, and I'm like, "Talk to Divija." I am Divija's cheerleader in real life.
I think we should all be
Stand on
each
the
other's
background.
cheerleaders, to be very honest.
That's true. I will stand on the highway with Divija's
I do feel
Instagram
like you
profile.
you really support me. Like I always see you sharing and like replying to my stories and stuff. I like it.
Yeah. Like, I get really excited because apart from the fact that you're a friend's friend, and like I'm just like, yes, I will support you. That aggressive need I feel inside. Other than that, also, I really, really like your content, and I feel like it should be shared as much as possible. Not only is this
Absolutely
relatable, but
agree.
it's so important. For Indian families to watch your content. I've made my parents
Exactly.
sit and watch your long videos. Like you will watch it till the end and understand.
I wish I could like share my content with older people, but they're not on Instagram, so that
Yeah,
they
they're on
But
the
really
side of Instagram that our generation doesn't go to. They're just interacting among themselves. And I think while that's a lot of self-preservation that I don't want you to see the life I live, but also you should see this content out there. It's really important that you understand this. It's, yeah.
yeah, I share it on my family WhatsApp group. Like enough of your WhatsApp forward. Here is what you're supposed to watch.
yeah, I should start sharing my videos on WhatsApp. Like then maybe they would
Family group.
Yeah, make those really
Everything gets done
clickbaity
in there.
WhatsApp videos. Maybe that will really, catch up with the
Yeah.
older generation.
With the tulip flower and green background and the italicized font saying good morning.
yeah,
Real psychological facts.
proper psychological facts. Yeah,
Yeah, from a real psychologist
I
giving
mean,
me
not a bad
advice.
idea entirely. Not really a bad idea, to be
actually.
honest.
Wow, look at me. Coming up with ideas.
Yeah.
So this has been a fun conversation. And thank you so much, Divija, for talking to us, for talking to the womb. And yay.
Took it
I really don't know how to
Yeah.
of you.
See, I don't know about you, Divija, but three people are in this room. Out of the three people in this room, two have ADHD. They will go on and on. So
Yeah, I have no idea how to end conversation.
I have no idea.
You have to
I
stop
just
me
walk
from
out.
talking.
Yeah,
It's like,
I'm really bad at it. Like, in fact, I struggle a lot with ending sessions in the beginning. Like, I don't know how to say bye. Like, I just keep going on.
yeah,
Thankfully,
it's like a really Indian parent thing. Your parents are just
yeah,
like your relatives are leaving, but they're still at the door for like
yeah,
another half an hour. I think that's something like we've taken from our parents also.
It's
Man, it's always the
customary, it's in our
parents.
genes.
It's
We
always
don't know
the
how to say
parents.
bye.
It
it
really
is.
is.
Damn it.
Yeah. Okay, Srinivas, I think this is it for today.
Yeah, we won't stop